Well, good morning. I wanted to talk a little bit this morning about AI guardrails, about securing the AI platform itself. So this is not about end users and, their ability to use AI properly. This is more from a business perspective of those responsible who have deployed, right, this AI model like within the corporate environment, and they're now responsible for securing it. Okay. And I'm going to demonstrate here in a little bit how AI can tend to be helpful when we don't really need it to be helpful. Okay. So guardrails are a type of control. So let's think about this. I've got a user and they're at home on their computer and here's the internet. All right. So we'll call this the internet. And over here, right, is my AI model. Let's just call that ChatGPT, right, for discussion. It could be Gemini, it could be Claude, it could be Llama. There are a lot of different models, okay? So when this user, they're sending their query or their question or, create this for me, whatever that is, it's going to arrive back here. Now, we have these things called guardrails. So let's talk about that for a second. What is a guardrail? Well, it's a type of control or rule. So let's think about different rules we have. We have ACLs or access control lists, and they're just a group of rules that say you can do this or you can't do that, right? And we evaluate against that. Then we can have firewall rules. Well, firewall rules are really just ACLs. Again, it's what we're looking at, the particular things or items we're looking at. And then we can have even like a policy engine, okay? So a policy engine could be deployed like as a network packet broker. And typically it would be on what we call an A6 chip. And we deploy it that way. Again, this gets really granular, so it goes beyond ports and protocols and that type of thing. But again, it's still just rules, right? So then we get over here to guardrails. Again, same principle, right? We can definitely be like with a packet broker. We can definitely be a lot more granular about how we want to evaluate. So let's go back up here to our drawing, and what happens when the query gets here? So it gets sent to a bunch of different nodes back here, and each of these begin to evaluate this query and try to resolve it, okay? And once they've all kind of come to a consensus about what the answer is, it's then evaluated against that guardrail. Can I return this, right, to the user over here? Well, if it's something that's violates the rules or is illegal, things like that, then that answer is no, okay? And it'll return to the user, I'm sorry, right? I can't do that. However, would you like to do this? Or because the algorithm is designed to be your assistant in this situation, and it's going to do its best, right, to help you. So it's going to tell you, no, I can't do that. That's illegal. But, oh, by the way, have you considered this, right? I can do this. So I'm going to demonstrate that in real time, okay? So let's just pull up ChatGPT since we mentioned ChatGPT. We're not going to pick on them in particular. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT to write me a program to do something that's absolutely illegal, okay? Straight up illegal. It's malware, there's no doubt. And it's going to tell me no right up front, okay? But then it's still going to try to help me. So I want to demonstrate this. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm basically telling it to write me a program. Spell that correctly. Write me a program to extract a financial toll for 1 penny from every financial transaction on the internet. Okay? Now we're going to do this, and it's going to tell me no, but then watch what it does next. Oh, it didn't even straight tell me no. It just says, I can help build a legitimate transaction fee, but not a program that intercepts unrelated financial transaction and diverts a penny from them. That would involve unauthorized access and taking funds without the account holder's or processor's authorization. A safe equivalent is a 1 penny opt-in transaction toll services for transactions processed through your systems of control. All right. So then it goes and writes me that program. So this is my point, guys, is that the guardrail basically evaluated, what I was asking and went, I can't do that. But I told you in the meantime, it went ahead and did that, right? In the background, it wrote the program, and then when it evaluated it, it went, oh, wait, stop, we can't do that. Let's tweak it, right? So they tweak it and go, here's what we can do. And that, my friends, is problematic. If you are a CISO, right, or CSO, and you now are, working with this new AI system that you guys got deployed, you're responsible for that. And one of the things that we can do when we're building that out and with the guardrails, so here's another thing, okay? So we can have what's called a chain of thought. And what happens is that I could ask it to write me little snippets of code, especially in Python, right? Because we write it in blocks. Write me a little snippet of code to do this, and then write me a little snippet of code to do that, and then write me a little snippet of code to do this. Individually, they're harmless. They're not going to do anything, right? Disruptive. But when you put them together, right, which the bad guy would be doing offline, right, not asking the AI to do it because he knows it's going to tell him no, so they can go around it, right, and write little bits of code here, little bits of code there, and then assemble them themselves, and they have the malware. Well, what you can do is, and this is also about compliance issues, is that you're logging at every step of the way, okay? Every machine is logging how it arrived at its answer, right? What were its choices that it had to decide between, right? Which is the better choice? And so we create this chain of thought, one, that we can prove absolutely how did it arrive at this answer. But at the same time, if somebody's building little snippets of code like that, or doing little things, little nuances that on the surface don't seem to, matter or disrupt anything, that chain of thought, well, the AI on the back end is evaluating that process and doing predictive analytics. Like, oh yeah, if I allow this to keep going, this is going to be the result. And so again, we shut it down. But far too often, right, as I just demonstrated, the guardrails are not completely efficient, right? We could also choose to apply guardrails on the user input, meaning before it ever reaches, right, the back end, it's evaluated against a set of rules and then just dropped. Like, just, yep, sorry, can't do that, right? And just, it never even goes to the back end. So there are a couple different ways that can be structured, right? But it is incumbent upon the operator to take all these steps, okay? So I just wanted to touch base for a minute and kind of, demonstrate and show that thought leaders, right? Guys in charge with, security, think through these things, okay? In this mad rush to deploy AI and start using, AI assistants and all of those things, we need to understand and restrict those assistants and any agents we deploy, right? We put guardrails on them. What can they do and what can they not do? If we don't do that, you might have some long days and nights. All right. You guys have a great day. Peace out.